Hey, thank you so much for being on today. I'm really excited for our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and thanks everyone for listening. And it's really cool to see a dedicated podcast and content on attribution. It's something that I dreamed would exist like 10 years ago, and it's here it is. So thanks for running this and putting this together and bringing people together to talk attribution. Excited to be a guest today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you were employee number 6 of Bizible. You were the first marketing hire, which probably you're like, hey, let's do a podcast about attribution, right? As a marketer. And that's where, for those who listen, know like my background started with Bizible, been doing it for 6 years now. That's where my passion with attribution came. So when you were coming on, I was so stoked because I get to talk to one, number 6 employee, like the guy who helped kind of launch this and create a vision
Yeah.
for how to get this to market. So tell me, like, why Bizible? Why the timing? Like, what made that move for you as you took on that journey?
Yeah, gosh, it's been 6 years. Wow. Yes. This is back in 2013. I was a marketer at Microsoft in Seattle. So living in Seattle, working at Microsoft, but I knew I wanted to do startups and be involved in startups. And yeah, Visible was like 5, 6 employees at the time, something like that. And they were hiring a first full-time marketing hire, and I interviewed for the job, and I got it. And I really just was like, it kind of sounds neat and it sounds cool, and I don't know, I'll learn something, and ended up being an awesome ride. And I'm still working with a lot of the Visible team now in our new startup, which we'll talk about. But for me, I didn't really evaluate it very intelligently. I just thought it was kind of neat, and at the time, it really wasn't attribution at all. It
Mhm.
was just an app to connect Google AdWords into Salesforce. And the, the kind of Visible team before I had gotten there was playing around with a bunch of different startup ideas. One of them was kind of like attribution, but more for like plumbers and SMBs, not how you would think about like B2B attribution today
Yeah.
with Bizible. And then in 2013, Salesforce was shutting down. They had an app called Salesforce for Google AdWords, which let you connect AdWords into Salesforce, and they were shutting that down. And the team said, well, maybe we can build sort of a replacement for that. And so they did. They built like a really lightweight version of kind of attribution, I guess, like at least for Google AdWords, and
Yeah, top
just
of
started
funnel type stuff.
yeah, just started cold calling all the people that were using that product in 2013 over the summer, and got a couple of customers and said, hey, let's keep going, let's keep growing with this. This is the new direction of the company, the new product, if you will. And then I joined like October 2013, and it was still pretty early. It wasn't 100K ARR yet, so just a handful
Yeah.
of customers and kind of early days.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and did you ever expect the ship that, like the rocket ship that it became? Like there was that massive growth that it ended up taking there.
Yeah, so I joined 2013. We sold in 2018, and so that was 5 years. 5 years later, we went from like 5, 6 employees to 100 and maybe 120 employees when we sold in 2018. Um, and I mean, on one hand, like, did I expect it? Not really. It's really hard. It was like hard to make a leap from like because I wouldn't even call it a product almost even then. It was more of like an app, and
Yeah,
it kind of
just
built its way into like a solution. And I think it was $49 a month in 2013, and now it's
yeah,
the pricing is a lot different. So it's
yeah,
like hard to see how this is like a big venture scale business. But on the other hand, I have a lot of respect for Andy and Aaron, like two of the co-founders. They were smart folks and very committed. In fact, I ended up liking working with them so much at Visible that we, all started Inflection together. And so we're still working together 10, 11 years later.
yeah. I love that. So what was the breaking point to get into attribution? It sounds like you were doing some top of funnel stuff with, you were uh, from the get go figuring out how do we just make sure we get that initial connection. probably basic campaign structure of Google campaigns and associating that back to initial engagement. What was that launching point? And then how did you, like, what was the need? Because as a marketer, how were you, like, were you feeling like, hey, people are telling us this is the need we need? Like, we have to be able to understand like more of the journey past Google. Like, what was that shape? Like, how did that shape out for you as you were trying to go to market?
Yeah. Yeah. This in 2013, 14, even like 15, if you said the word attribution to an average marketing, like SaaS marketing person, they wouldn't really even know what you were talking about. So we started very much with like paid search. There's like a clear direction between like it all happens online too, and just a very clear kind of ROI for the product you're delivering. But it's not a big problem. Like you're solving a problem for like a paid media manager. You're not solving a problem for a company or a problem for a CMO. Or a marketing organization as a whole. So we were the whole time, very obsessed with how do we go capture more value. Like literally just asking the question, like, hey, the
Yeah.
product is $90 a month now. What do we need to do to get to a product that people pay thousands a month for? And what does that look like? And both what's the product we need to deliver to that value that equals, the amount somebody would pay us, and also the kind of ICP and the type of company that would pay that. So we sold, we were selling into, paid media manager persona. They was putting that in a credit card. And we were just always thinking about like how do we move up market? How do we get like grow beyond that person and that persona? And it was just always like, okay, like to do that, great. We need to add other sources, like offline sources. We need to like start working with Salesforce campaigns. And it was like, okay, and that was still, we were doing 2 touch points at that time. And then we're like, okay, now we need to really expand into multiple touch points and post opportunity create and custom attribution models. And then we need to, then we started getting customer requests. We're big enough now. We started getting more and more customer requests of like building a data warehouse connection and, this thing and that thing. And so it was partially customer driven and also partially like, what do we need to go build to get the customers that we want to go get?
Yeah. Yeah, just the over the general go-to-market strategy. Like, yeah, how do we, like you said, go upstream and continue to build that? That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I did not know any of that. I mean, I came in,
Yeah.
implementing it when it was fully baked pretty much. And so, fell in love with the whole concept of it and what it did. And what's really interesting in the story that you're sharing, Dave, is, it started as this top of funnel, really marketing, paid ads type of group. And now when I work with people with attribution and have these conversations, it is like truly attribution is about how do we get these teams to work together? How do we bring in everyone? And it's really just neat to see even the evolution of where we're at. Because I think even 10 years ago, people, when you said attribution, it probably was like just single point of campaign or a Google ad, or it was very basic. And I think partly what Bizible has done is really transformed all of that. So you've alluded to this already. I want to hear more about what you're doing at Inflection. I mean, you're probably not starting out as basic as you started with Bizible, but I've watched a few demos there. So I would love to hear a little bit of what you're doing now at Inflection.
Yeah. The short story is we've built and we're building. It's never done. Marketing automation, and we focus mostly on companies that have data outside of Salesforce, essentially product-led companies. We make it easy to bring in data from like a Snowflake, like a data warehouse, or from CDPs like a Segment, and orchestrate campaigns like you would think of for marketing automation on your prospect flows, but also your customer or user flows like onboarding, expansion campaigns, etc. And we took a lot of learnings from Bizible this time around, and it was a fight like moving up market at Bizible. Like I said, we started at 49 a month, 69 a month, $99 a month, and we kept moving up market. This time we're lucky and privileged, and also just we're doing this again. We're starting up like up market much more this time.
Yeah, much further up the
And
market. Yeah.
yeah, which makes things a little bit easier.
That's awesome. So how are you it's fairly early with it. I've seen what you do. I love the flow, the complexity of being able to actually compartmentalize each marketing movement within a canvas. So which is really cool. It's a little bit different than what you see at a lot of other marketing automation platforms. We have single individual campaigns. You can actually like orchestrate those things and see those all in one place. But what's the roadmap, or what are you all thinking as far as measurement? Like, how do those data points, are you thinking like, hey, we push this as a data warehouse to where you can extract and people can utilize it that way? Like, what's next in that sense?
Yeah, we're lucky that we're very driven on what customers need. And there's great solutions out there for very in-depth attribution. So we think about solving for like the 80% case, and the 80% case is like simple attribution, and that works for a lot of companies because there is great options for attribution now on the market. So for us, it's like lightweight digital attribution plus, I don't know, maybe we'll do some like Salesforce campaign stuff, but honestly, pretty basic, but works for a lot of companies. And then those that want something a bit more can get one of the great solutions in the market.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So, really, even within a product like growth motion, like just be very specific about the product that you're offering, right? Don't try to like do all the things, like really hone in on that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's I
We
mean, I'm
don't want to
excited.
build attribution software again.
Yeah, exactly. Been there, done that.
We're like, all right, we have like all these ideas for like what attribution could look like, and like you're right, it could be push the data warehouse, could be doing these crazy visualizations, and we're like, ooh, like I don't think I want to do that again. And we'll build some obviously, but we're intentional about like not building like an attribution product for it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I love it. Well, good stuff, Dave. I'm just so glad that you joined the podcast. I think it's neat for people to hear kind of the origin story of Bizible. I didn't even know it myself, and so I think it's just really fun for people to like see like where ideas go from, even if for those who are just product marketers and maybe working with something, and to be able to think outside the box or really go above and beyond of what's the initial product is. It's just a really neat story to hear.
Yeah, it's grown a lot. Like I was saying, you talked to somebody in 2015, you mentioned attribution, they're like, what are you talking about? So we spent so much energy on education, way more than like you would have to do now. When we had probably 2015-ish, 16-ish, we had maybe like a 6 or 7 person marketing team. Yeah, probably 6, 7 if you include me. And I think we had 4 content marketers full time, just creating like definitive guide kind of content and just thinking about, and writing blog content. I know when we sold in 2018, we had, I think like 100,000 lead database, and we were getting like 100,000 visits to our blog every month, and just educate, and then we had 40 BDRs just cold calling, just trying to drum up demand because there was some inbound and we were doing a lot of education, but there wasn't a lot of people going out to solve for the attribution problem like you see today. And there's a lot of, and we were at, like 2017, 18, we were pretty much the only, player on the market that had, I could say this, we're the only B2B attribution product in the market that had more than $1 million in ARR, and we had well more than that. And so we were the whale, and there were maybe a couple goldfish, but that was it. Today, I think it's really cool. There's a few different providers. Like the category has matured, is what I'm saying there. And there's people who like think about like when they're building a tech stack, like what's our answer for attribution, and thinking about that. And there's even like debates on LinkedIn about it all the time on self-reported attribution and algorithmic attribution and this and that. And some people try to bait me sometimes, like weigh in, Dave. I'm like, first of all, I don't care anymore. Like that's an old life. Like it's not keeping me up anymore. And then it's also like, I wish people were saying that stuff in 2016. Like, that's cool. Like that's great that there's people are thinking about it, and it's living rent free in people's brains, because that just means it's more of a conversation, and people are thinking about it and weighing the pros and cons. We built a great business, but there wasn't like a big category like it, exists today, 5, 6 years later.
Yeah, I remember when we were implementing it, it was most of the competitors were trying to build everything within Salesforce. I'm sure there was other players in it, but you were one of the few that was using that first party cookie to be able to bring in additional data insights into Salesforce, where a lot of people were just like living within the confines of Salesforce and then layering campaigns on top of campaigns and putting a lot more data points or fields onto the campaign and kind of overcomplicating things within Salesforce. And your system was really unique in the fact that it's like, hey, you can plug this in, we'll ingest unique, unique tables that will give you the data that you're looking for. The build was very light. But yeah, and to your point, I think a lot of people have replicated that, either not necessarily going into Salesforce, but now they are pulling that into their own systems and showing all of that data in their own dashboards. But I think what was really, I don't know what the point, like the turning point in this, but you mentioned like there's a point where we needed to get a data warehouse accessible for our clients. And I think that, again, was something that was just so far ahead of the curve at that time.
Yeah.
Where now, like that's, I think for most enterprise organizations, that's essential, right? It's
Right.
because they have Power BI, they have a Tableau, they have places where they need data to be elsewhere, and it's not just Salesforce anymore. So even like the forethought of that was really just profound in my mind when it comes to attribution.
Yeah, and that was a customer request of a very large, well-known to this day product-led company who they came to us and they liked what we did, but there's Salesforce data limits, and
Yeah.
the reality is you couldn't push. They have tens and tens of millions of users, and you can't push data to Salesforce for all of them. And so we had to work up a solution with them. And so they were the launch customer and our biggest customer for a while after launch of that feature. So. Yeah, and it's probably started to give us the initial genesis too of like what other marketing should be connecting into the data warehouse, and it ended up leading to inflection. But yeah, it's cool. It's neat to see the customer requests. It's neat to see the adoption across so many different types of companies, and it was cool. We were very proud of the digital tracking, being able like the Bizible JS and tracking across forms, and we were I think to our knowledge, we were kind of the first and only doing that for a few years.
Yeah.
Now it's pretty well established across multiple categories of apps, not just
Not just attribution, but
attribution
yeah.
now. Probably in fact we like talked about it after we sold, like that was probably the Bizible technology, like that was probably what we should have maybe even like patented or made like a product, like a developer focused product for that. We always think that the metric sauce was complex attribution models,
Sure.
and at the time, that's what we kind of thought. And now looking back, many years later, no regrets about it at all. But the website tracking, and there's probably a bunch of apps that you could have built, and there have been a bunch of apps built basically on top of that. And so that was something we're very proud of.
Yeah. No, I think again, having implemented and seeing the competitors that were being beat out, like that was kind of one of the standalone pieces, was that website
Yeah.
tracking piece. And then now with Google third-party cookie and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, I could see where hindsight, but I think it definitely added a ton of value to the product.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate you being on today. I hope everyone really enjoyed hearing the origin story, and I'm excited to see what Inflection does. I'm watching y'all's, demos and things like that. I think it's really cool what y'all are doing over there. So I appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.